There's Always Vanilla and Jack's Wife were seen by, very few people. And I don't know what my fans today will take from them. I mean, maybe they'll see a little bit of my style. Maybe they'll see a little bit of my head in there. There's always something instinctive. I mean, you can look at an artist's work, even if he changes styles over the years. There's, you can always maybe see a little something there that connects you or says, oh yeah, I can recognize that. And I can see the person in there. I don't know. Well, I haven't talked about There's Always Vanilla very much because it wasn't really mine. It was written by a friend of mine, and we had a lot of problems. It was our second film after Night of the Living Dead, and we all had our own different views about which way it should go and what it should be. So it was not, it wasn't really a fun experience that way, and. But I loved working with the cast, and it was a real learning experience. Trying to do something that wasn't non-horror, and it just was not. I don't think of it as a really complete film somehow.
Everybody's looking for the new thing.
After Night of the Living Dead, I didn't want to make another horror film right away. I just didn't want to get typecast that way. Eventually it happened, and I love the genre, and I have no regrets about any of that. But just initially, I didn't want to do it. We shot a little. It was a promo, a screen test film for Ray Lane, and that's really what There's Always Vanilla wound up being based on. We shot this little half-hour thing that Rudy Ritchie wrote, and it was its own entity, its own little film. And in some ways, I still think it's better. I wish I knew where that film was. In some ways, I think it's better than the resulting feature, because it wasn't pretending to be something that it wasn't, But we were influenced at the time by films like Goodbye Columbus, and there were small independent movies that were coming out that were, I guess you could call romantic comedies. I don't know how to categorize it even. Bittersweet little romance things. So we said, well, maybe we can do Night of the Living Dead again in a different genre. And that's really what it was about. So we asked Rudy to expand the script for this audition piece that we had done. And that's where the film came from.
I still can't figure out why the whole thing happened.
Everyone from Latent Image was involved in this film. I mean, it was our company project. We never were able, we didn't have the money or the time to do exactly what we wanted to do with it, and we wound up having to do all those narrations with Ray Lane to just sort of knit the thing together.
And we spend a lot of time trying to solve old problems, and we don't get anywhere.
So it was, it was a little disappointing that way. We just weren't able to shoot everything that we wanted to shoot. It's Ray's movie, and Judy Ridley, her name was Ridley then, was in Night of the Living Dead. And I think the two of them carried the film. Ray was a very strong actor. I think he really could have had a big career, but he chose to stay in Pittsburgh and teach and work at the Pittsburgh Playhouse and, like that. Judy was very, just brought a freshness to it. I mean, never trained as an actress at all. She just had a sort of instinct, a great look, and an instinctive ability to be natural and, just not afraid of the camera. She was able to just relax and, do her thing. We were producing TV commercials and industrial films at the time, and we had the studio and the cameras and the lights and everything, so we set the film in that milieu. And Rudy's cousin, Richard, who plays the producer, Richard Ritchie, we call him the Rev. He was around on many, many films all the way through Night Riders that we worked on. He actually was a TV commercial producer who went on and had a big career in New York and so forth, and then finally just got on a motorcycle and left the world, took off. It was just our world. It was what we were doing then, and so we thought that was a good setting for this. We shot the film over months and months, and we would pick up the cameras and go and shoot a little bit, and then shoot a little bit whenever we had time between jobs. And then we'd wait for Rudy to write, another scene or get some more script pages from him. And so it was really spread out. It was kind of scattered. And I don't think any of us were very comfortable or happy with the way it turned out. So I don't think of it as stylistically mine. I mean, I think that maybe what I had to do in the end was go back in and try to edit it and use the narration. And I used like these little stylistic tricks to try to make it all glue together and play. I don't think of There's Always Vanilla as a film that I directed as much as a film that I edited. I wasn't even at some of the screenings when we first brought it to look for distribution. And we finally showed it to Canvas Films. They had been doing, sort of softcore porn stuff, and they wanted to upgrade their image, and they picked it up as distributor. Called it The Affair. It's an I have to tell you, this is whether you put this on camera or not. It was an awful experience. I have very little recollection of what went on during the production of that film, and I care very little about it. Sorry. This is not just my mood. Season of the Witch, my original title for it was Jack's Wife. And I like it. I mean, it's the film of mine that I would really actually like to remake. Because, again, we ran out of money. We didn't have enough, we had like an investment broker was going to raise, 150. I forget what the budget was supposed to be. But they wound up, raising $90,000 and then bailed on us, and we never had the money to finish it. So it was really it was real guerrilla filmmaking, and we tried to make that money stretch and keep shooting and get it done. And again, it was all because of the friends and sort of family and coworkers that we were able to get the film finished and even make it coherent. But I love it. I love the theme of it. And it might even be more pertinent today, a woman who's just opening those doors and wanting to expand her horizons. There are still a lot of guys out there that just keep women locked in cages, in a sense. I had ideas that I just wanted to execute. I mean, I was, at the time there were cities the size of Pittsburgh still had art cinemas. That, they were bringing in British films and Swedish films and French and Italian films. And so I think that maybe those, seeing Fellini and, Renoir and probably had an influence stylistically on what I wanted to do with the film. Making film it's at least for somebody like me who's a very sort of hands-on filmmaker, it's a learning curve. You still learn. I'm still learning. I've made 14, 15 flicks. John Ford, what did he make? A couple of hundred. That's how you learn. You just keep learning how to move the eye and how to do things. And this was very early film for me. I just had a knowledge of basic technique, but I was really still experimenting with style. And it's a very parasitic medium. I mean, I don't know that the opening dream sequence in this film, I don't know where I stole it from, but I'm sure I stole it from somebody.
Hey, you know what I think? Oh, how in the hell can anybody have so many opinions without ever having done anything?
The film and the character of Joan grew out of the time, I think. I mean, it just grew out of the late 60s, early 70s. When it seemed as though, women were wanting to, break out. This is not career stuff. It's not the glass ceiling or anything like that. It was just, a woman's role at home. And a woman is a less than complete citizen of the world, of a marriage, of a relationship. And it just seemed like that was happening. And, it seemed like there was a lot of that then. There was a lot in the press about it then. It was the beginning, it was Women's Lib, the beginning of that, and all the sort of beginning rumblings of that. And I just thought it would be a good topic for a film. And I wanted to, sort of touch back on the horror roots using witchcraft, even though this is not a horror film. There are a couple of scary sequences. There were those sequences that are supposed to be scary, but we didn't have the resources to really pull them off well. Differences between this and Rosemary's Baby are vast in terms of just execution. But thematically, it's there. And I thought that would help us in terms of, commercial success for the film. Of course, it didn't, because this is the kind of film that needs a cast and needs I mean, a name cast in order to get good distribution. But I'm very happy that it's there, and I really, it's gratifying that people actually really like this movie or see through past what I think are its technical failures, and and get it. I think Jan was perfect. She portrayed that character really, really well. We met her through a commercial producer. She was an actress doing TV commercials, ads, and a client of ours introduced us to her, and she just seemed perfect for it.
O holy Virago, we allow thee to depart and go to thy proper place. So mote it be.
The theme of the witchcraft that runs through Jack's wife is not what the movie is about. It's her way of cutting loose. And she's basically using it just as a way of saying, gee, I want to cut myself loose. I want to have an affair with this guy. I'll say the devil made me do it. And that's really what the theme of the movie is. I don't think the devil is actually there. I think that it's all in her head. There were a couple of odd things that happened, but, I'm not a believer in that kind of stuff. But more in the final line in the film when she says,
I'm a witch.
When she said that, a crack opened in the ceiling right over her head. And it was, I'm sure it was just the lights. We were on a real location, and I'm sure the lights were just too close to the ceiling. But it was pretty amazing. And, everybody was talking about, man, this is spooky stuff. Maybe the devil is, on our shoulder somewhere. But I'm not a believer in anything like that. We just had a couple of those weird, wacky things happen. We needed a house that had a lot of doorways and things, and one of the guys that worked at Leighton Image, Gary Striner, knew the Forrest family, and said that house might be right for you. So we went out and we looked at the house, and it was perfect, and they welcomed us into it, and they were, it was wonderful. They would cook meals for us. It wasn't like just renting a location. They enjoyed the whole process. And Ingeborg Forrest was eventually said, well, I have a daughter who's an actress living in New York. And I said, yeah, right. Maybe I'll give her a call someday. And it turned out that she's my wife now, has been since 1980.
When I look out my window, many sights to see.
I was sort of a Donovan fan, and I found that song, Season of the Witch, and we decided to use it for that sequence. Again, I was looking for a way to, just do a slightly more stylized sequence with the credit cards and buying the stuff. I think it works pretty well. It's a pretty good sequence. But I never intended to use the song, and never intended to call the movie Season of the Witch. In my mind, it was Jack's wife.
Hungry wives.
Yeah, it was turned over to a sales agent and who got a deal with Jack Harris. I wasn't part of the negotiations. I wasn't there. We had an agent representing us, and all I did was get the word that he wanted the movie to be shorter. I don't know if it even ever played in theaters. And then we, quickly we went and did Crazies, and things started to move a lot faster. After Night of the Living Dead, the disappointment of doing 3 films that sort of nobody saw was immense. And the Crazies at least opened in theaters. It was at one of the early screenings of the Crazies that I met Richard Rubenstein, and that's sort of when we started to do things, professionally. In the case of There's Always Vanilla and Jack's Wife, my strongest recollections of those films is just not having the money or the time to be able to really do what I wanted to do. And, there's a big part of me that's almost written them off. In terms of an emotional connection to them. The learning process in making those 2 films, it was so basic. It was really literally learning how to, work the screw on the tripod and how to, put a camera on a dolly. I think Season of the Witch has the first dolly shot I ever did. I was just learning the most basic tools of the trade, or how to use them, or how to, edit. And screen direct, I didn't even know about screen direction. I didn't even know that eyes should look at each other, I'm not looking forward to watching them, no. And I probably will not watch them for a while, maybe some time when I'm on vacation or whatever. I don't know. I'm not that way. I don't look at my own work or look at my old films a lot. You're forced to see them sometimes at conventions or at events where people are showing them. But I generally don't. I'd rather I'd rather look ahead and try to look forward to new stuff.